Okay, so we're going to show the setup for the first Qiskit assignment that is replicating this Stern-Gerlach experiment using quantum computers. So what we're asking you to do is follow along with this experiment that's described on this page. First, we're inviting you to watch the video, which is not that long.
I'm going to teach you about
which is this video here. It looks like it's 13 minutes long. I think she's a great presenter, and she knows what she's talking about with quantum and with Qiskit. Okay? I think her name is Katie McCormick. Then I want you to skim the text, taking in what you can take in. If you're feeling crushed in math, that's okay. Just keep reading. It's okay. They're explaining the experiment and the math behind it. And as you scroll down, you'll find some code snippets like this one. Do I need to go to light mode? I'll do it for you. So you can copy this. In order for this to work in a Python notebook, you're going to have the stuff installed that you need, which is kind of the hard part. This first one doesn't even use Qiskit at all. It's just using, you see, random, NumPy, which may already be installed, actually. This next one will. So then you repeat this using, you kind of increase the rigor of the experiment in the different versions of it. And you may then need to you see this. Use the code below if you're unable to run the experiment on a real quantum computer. Instead of submitting your code to the cloud, to their quantum computer, you're going to want to use this. It's AER. I assume that's pronounced AIR. The AIR simulator is simulating a quantum computer on your computer so you can run everything locally. Does that make sense? So that way you don't use up your credits on this stuff. Then this is the second experiment, which kind of just ramps it up and does a more complex version of the experiment. You see down here, open users. I think that's what y'all are, open users. Yeah, okay, well, let's work through that later. Read this. Then there's the third experiment. And then there's the fourth experiment. Yes, Annika? That's a great question, and it's like many kinds of simulation, it's slow. So I believe I read that you can only simulate up to quantum circuits that have about 50 qubits, and after that it's just too slow. Whereas on a real quantum computer, it's not slow because it's really just doing that physical process. Good question. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is, I think you should open a folder, and I think it should be your quantum folder. Didn't we have a quantum folder? And this is the part I'm changing. I think instead of having a folder for your project, you can just put all of your notebooks in one folder called quantum. So I would come over here, and you can either right-click and create a new file. And if you make this file, what do you want to call this? Like Stern-Gerlach dot. Here's the key. Make sure the extension is IPY for Python, NB for notebook. IPY-NB. This creates a new notebook. And then you get this all this coolness over here. Yeah? I think there's a keyboard shortcut for that as well, where you could do like Command-Shift-P, create new Jupyter Notebook, that would create the same thing. But now I've already named it. And then over here, you have to select the kernel, which is the Python environment that you're going to run this in. Yeah? So I click select kernel, and I'm going to click Python environments. And you can either create a new environment just for this notebook, or you could reuse one of the Python environments on your computer. You seeing this? And I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to use VM, the virtual environment command, to create a new virtual environment that exists in this current workspace for all of these quantum notebooks. And I'm going to use, for me, what is my latest version of Python. And I do think you want to have something that's like above 3.8. That means 3.9 or later. I'm going to use this 313. If you use Conda, you might want to do this the Conda way instead of this way. Do y'all have this option for a new version of Python? No? Did you install Conda? Okay, let me try it again then. I'm going to select kernel. I'm going to select Python environment. The Conda extensions. So when I selected Conda, okay, thank you. When I selected Conda, it did come up to this, where when I'm creating a new Conda environment, I can choose which version of Python between 3.8 and 3.12 to use. So I'm going to choose 3.12, and now it's going to create a whole new Conda environment. And I'm wondering if this worked. It was 3.12, right? I think it's this one. 3.12.7. That is my interpreter. Now I select this, which is Python environments, and I want to use this 3.12.7, which is the Anaconda environment for this thing, for this notebook. So now I can create a new thing that says it worked, shift enter, and it worked. So that means it executed Python. Now when I create a new environment, it doesn't have any of the packages that we need. And whenever we need packages, we're going to need to kind of figure out what they are. And some of that we did last time, but hang on, it's up here at the top. You see this? So you need those modules: Qiskit, Qiskit IBM Runtime, Qiskit Air, Qiskit.visualization, Qiskit or NumPy, and I don't know what that is, but let's get it to. So get these guys and install them. The way to install these in a Jupyter Notebook, do you guys remember this trick? If you say %pip install, then you can install just like you would do on the command line with pip install. So let me get pip install Qiskit. Notice Qiskit is spelled Qiskit. I'm going to press shift enter, and now it should download and install Qiskit and all its dependencies into this environment that this current thing is connected to. Yeah? And then like we did last time, to confirm that this worked, I can print I have to import Qiskit, and then I can say Qiskit dot, wasn't it like __ version? Why isn't it popping up? .1.2. Hey, it worked. Huzzah. So that's part of what we want to be doing there. Make sure you're saving. Make the white dot go away. Save often before you run stuff. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, let's chat some more after class if you got more questions on Qiskit. Okay, I'm going to completely change gears. Can you handle it? So we're going to open up a new window of VS Code, like so, new window. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open a folder. Command O. I'm going to find a folder in the place where I put stuff. And I'm going to create a new folder called Tailwind Intro. And we're going to introduce Tailwind. So I have opened a folder called Tailwind Intro. Tailwind Intro. This is completely separate from Quantum, yes. So Tailwind, as perhaps you saw in the video, Tailwind is a framework for writing CSS a little bit more easily by using declarative utility, by using the utility classes that we can just declare. So I don't know if you ever wrote CSS before, where you wrote a CSS class that you actually wanted to use multiple times. For example, you might have said like, hey, you know what? I want to center a bunch of text. And I'm just going to create a class called center text. And then whenever you wanted center text, you would just say class equals center text, among other classes that you wanted to do. Does that make sense? That you wrote a class that wasn't specific to one single element on the page, but could be reused by multiple classes, multiple elements on the page, because it was like a reusable style. So Tailwind CSS goes all in on that and says, what if we Tailwind wrote hundreds or thousands of classes for you that are reusable utility classes, and you just have to learn the right names to use them. If we did that, then you could just stay in HTML and not have to go kind of swap back and forth between HTML and CSS. And there's a lot of value in that, and a lot of people have really come to like Tailwind. Now, I think my arc, which is like other people's, is I hate Tailwind. Tailwind is the worst. Oh, you know, this is okay. Oh, this is the only way I want to write CSS now. Right? That's the flow that a lot of people have had. Is so if you hate it, that's okay. You're in good company. But give it a chance. Okay. Did anybody happen to go to their website? Why would you do such a thing? Did you all watch those videos? I mean, I was just wondering. So I do think I love this animation that they have, where they kind of illustrate it. So you see, as they're typing in here, as they add class, font, medium, text, sky, you see that this is changing here on the right. So they're in real time designing this this little card by adding class names. You see multiple class names. Multiple class names are separated by spaces. So learning Tailwind is learning what these kind of class names are and what the framework is for creating them. So how do we get started? You may wonder. Well, let's click Get Started. There are several ways of doing this, either using Vite or using the Tailwind CLI. And let's try it the CLI way. So if you're following along with me, you've gone to tailwindcss.com, click Getting Started, click Tailwind CLI. Seeing this? And this first one tells us how to install the Tailwind CSS program. Okay, so in here, I'm going to show my terminal. I'm in an empty folder. And I'm going to npm install Tailwind CSS at tailwindcss/CLI. Let's see what happens. Okay, so when I installed that, you'll see that we created a package.json, which tells the dependencies of this project, and we have a Tailwind CSS CLI and a Tailwind CSS. The two dependencies that have been installed, and those supporting files are under the node modules folder. You know, this folder that we never look into. Okay. Are we good? We're not good? So this is the command that I executed. The npm install Tailwind CSS and at Tailwind CSS /CLI. That's /. Somebody needs to install Node.js. Did we not do that? Are you serious? Oh, that was not this class? All right. So the first thing we're going to do, step 0, is go to nodejs.org. Nodejs.org. We're going to click Get Node.js. Get Node.js. And we are going to get the latest version by, let's just get the current version, which is v24. Version 24? Yeah, version 24? You good? And then you can, I think the easier way is to say get pre-built Node.js. It's going to auto-detect your operating system and architecture, and then download in macOS, it's this installer. For Windows, it's probably like a, what is it, an exe or something? Yeah, good question. So to see what version you have installed, you can say node space -- version. The -- version usually works for almost any command line program. So I've got version 24. Okay, that'll work. So we want to download this and then run this installer. Who needs a moment to do that? Okay, sorry about that. I apologize. Okay, so you will probably have to restart Visual Studio Code after you run that. And if you're on Windows, you'll probably get some kind of security exception the first time you run it, and then you have to execute some command to allow the permission. You remember that? Did we copy paste that anywhere? Could you copy it from our Discord to this Discord just to help them? That's 367. How's it going, guys? It's happening? Select a framework. The npm install Tailwind CSS? I think, oh, I bet you were on a different thing. Did you go over to Tailwind CLI? I don't want to do using Vite. I want to do Tailwind CLI. All right. Yep. It says that. Based on when you're reusing those packages, downloading and installing them, they're able to say, please fund this open source package. Okay. How are we doing, guys? Is there code? Is there Node? Do you have Node installed? Not yet. This is 367. Okay. So looking in this package.json, is this the first time we've seen one of these? Okay. Package.json is a file that's in the JSON format, which is the JavaScript object notation, that defines the external software that we want to use in our project. So Node is a runtime for running JavaScript apps on a regular computer or on a server. So we can run code in the server with Node. We can run it in the browser, in any browser. Right? That's where JavaScript came from. That's where it originated. So Node allows us to run JavaScript locally. And one of the nicest, most popular things about Node is that it also includes the Node package manager, npm. npm is kind of like pip for Python, where it's a program and a whole repository of other open source packages where we can easily say, hey, go give me this code that I didn't write that I'd like to use. Somebody else wrote it. And when npm goes out and gets that code from somebody else, it also retrieves all the dependencies of the project that I want. And it retrieves the dependencies of the dependencies. And guess what else it retrieves? The dependencies of the dependencies of the dependencies, right? All the way down so that we have all the things, all the prerequisites that we need, which would have been a pain to do without an automated system. So in this case, in order for us to install Tailwind, which was this Tailwind CSS, and to install the Tailwind CSS CLI, which is the command line interface, we had to download 73 packages. Those are the dependencies, and the dependencies of the dependencies, and so forth. All that other software gets put in the Node modules folder. You can open it and see, and these are the 73 other packages that we had to download. On the whole, we don't want to mess around in the Node modules folder. That's not a place where we should be changing stuff. We also don't really need to be changing the package.lock.json. It's a way of kind of locking in all of the version numbers of the software that we've downloaded. For us, it's these two packages that we really need for this baby project. Okay, so after I've explained package.json, which is a list of the dependencies for our project, it can also include other kind of metadata about our project. For example, if we were going to make a new package that we wanted to share with the world, we could make that as a JavaScript, an NPM package. We would define the name of our package and the version of our package and the dependencies of our package, and we could publish that to NPM to allow other people to install our software. Does that make sense? So this package.json is the file that is used to define all the baseline information about your code. How many of y'all have been able to execute this npm command, the npm install? This one? npm install Tailwind CSS? Yep. Hanukkah, what's up? Installing? Maserat, you good? Andrew? Nima? Caleb? Izzy? Tyson, you okay? Okay, I feel you. Grace, how's it going? Okay. Hey, what are the pieces of paper on all the desks for? I feel that. That happens to me some too. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to flip back to this and notice what we can do here. We now can import Tailwind CSS into our main CSS file. And here's the magic that's going to happen. Do you guys like magic? You know what's better than magic? Automagic. Something that just automatically happens. It just happens. The right stuff comes out. And that's what's going to happen here. We're going to use Tailwind classes to change the font styling or the margin or the padding or to make something in a flex box. We're going to run a command, and that command will analyze our code. For any time we use this Tailwind class name. For example, a really simple class name is M2. M2 means margin 2. M means margin. And that means there's like 2 units of margin on the top, on the bottom, on the left, on the right. All around. So instead of having to say margin some number of pixels, we say 2. 2 is defined as like, there's some unit that's like half a rem or a full rem or something. So like 1 rem is 16 pixels. So 2 rem would be 32 pixels. But we kind of remove ourselves from pixels and can just define on this more unitless value. Okay, so in order to do any of this, though, we need an HTML and a CSS file. So let's do that. So I'm going to right-click, new file. I'm, of course, going to call it index.html because I'm not a lunatic. So it's just a little index file. I'm sorry if that was offensive to lunatics and people who name things poorly. In this index file, I'm going to say exclamation point, tab, boom. And this is our Tailwind intro document. And in this document, I'm going to put just a tiny bit of HTML. I'm going to have an H1 that says Tailwind is cool, exclamation point. And I'm going to have a paragraph that says lorem 5. You guys know the lorem ipsum. So lorem, I don't know, maybe 8. Lorem 8 tab. So we'll get 8 words of lorem ipsum. Okay. Let's go ahead and see what this website looks like. It's going to be terrible. Yeah. Super gross. Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to add a CSS file. So we're doing this in the standard way. I'm going to call this styles.css. And in the styles.css, I'm going to put this one line of code that they just taught us, this @import Tailwind CSS. And this is the automagic. So where I would normally write CSS, and I still could, but I'm going to import all the magically written Tailwind code. See this? So I'm importing Tailwind CSS into my style sheet. You with me so far? Where do you need me to go back to? Okay. So as a reminder, to install Tailwind, you're going to npm space install space Tailwind CSS space @Tailwind CSS / CLI. Yep. So for the index page, exclamation point tab to get our basic boilerplate. And I just added a little bit of HTML so that we can see that this changes when we add the CSS in a second. It's called a snippet. So just say lorem. You can say lorem tab and it gives you like a whole paragraph. But when you say lorem 10, it'll give you 10 words of lorem ipsum text, which is just like that placeholder text that doesn't mean anything. I don't know, it's Latin and it's been in graphic design for like forever, since there was graphic design. Monica, how's it going? Not. Okay. Other questions? Okay. Just like before, we have to do what we did to link our HTML and CSS. The emit for this is link:/CSS if we're doing just plain old CSS. And I need to link this to a style sheet that's called styles.css, which is in the same directory. Just as a, you know my sanity check. Star, color, red. So if this link is correct, then all of the text on this page should be red. Let's see if it works. Okay, it's all in red. So I have correctly linked my HTML to my CSS. So now I'm going to get rid of this. This is just a test. Yeah? Yep. So to link your style sheet, it's this mess link rel equals style sheet href equals styles.css. All right, we're not using Tailwind yet, but we're about to. You're so close, so close. Actually, Tailwind is going to have styles even for these two things. And to make this work, there's a couple ways we could do it, but coming back to this documentation page, this is the command. This command where we say npx @tailwindcss/CLI, we give it two arguments, an input file and an output file, and we can have this watch. We've got ours stored in a different folder, so we'll need to change this. But this command will convert our input CSS to our output CSS while scanning our source files for any classes that we use that belong to Tailwind. At the moment, there aren't any. So let's add one. Can we add one? And I would like to add one that's called text dash. Now, if you have the Tailwind IntelliSense plugin installed, you should get the names of Tailwind classes popping up. Does that work for y'all? If not, come to extensions, type in Tailwind, and you want this Tailwind CSS IntelliSense verified 11.1 million downloads. So this is a really useful plugin because the main thing you have to know to do Tailwind is the hundreds or thousands of names that they've defined in their CSS. And by installing this extension, you just have to start with, you have to get the right keyword to start it off. So I'm going to make this text 7XL. We're going to go big or go home, all right? So this should make the text really, really large. You'll notice that nothing has changed about our thing because we haven't run this command, which will scan our input and take it to our output. I'm going to copy this, but I've got to change this command because our setup is different. Okay? Like we could, but we don't have to. So I'm going to, I actually think I need to make this differently now. I think actually what I'd rather do here is call this guy input.css. You see I've got an input.css that has this. I think this is what I need to do. And then I'm going to create, actually I don't have to create it. Over here, I want to include output.css on my page. Do you see this? Output.css. So basically, the CSS that we're going to include on our page is automatically generated by the command we're about to run. And the command searches our project for any time we've used Tailwind CSS, extracts the right bit of Tailwind CSS that somebody else wrote, and then puts it in our file. So that way we don't have to download the large file that has everything that's in Tailwind. We just need to download a file. We're generating a file that's as big as what we're going to use. Now at the moment when I do this, I should get some error, which you don't see, because there is no output.css. Okay, so let's see if this works. It could work, right? Hang on, I need to make this, the dash I is input.css, and the dash O is output.css, because I've got just everything in the same file. I'm going to delete the dash dash watch to see if this works just once. Okay, I created an output.css, and you see this? All this, what, a few hundred lines of CSS is what this wrote. So this is the baseline CSS for Tailwind. Can you all see this command that I executed? So I said, npx, the Tailwind CLI, my input file is input.css, which would just be any of the Tailwind, any additional CSS that I wrote. And then the output file is the one that it's going to generate. And that's what I want to link my page to. And then, wait, big payoff. You ready? Drum roll. Drum roll. You see how big this is? That's cool, right? We did that. Sure. Now, every time I make a change to my code, so if I were like, you know, actually that's a little too big, I think I'm going to take that down to 4x. When I do that, I've actually broken it because text 4XL was not included in the CSS. You can check that out. You see in the output, there should be in here a text dash 4XL. Oh, it's doing it in a different way. Oh, here we go. You see this? Dot text 7XL. When I ran the command before, this command down here, there wasn't a 4x used. So it didn't copy over that CSS. Does that make sense? So I need to execute this command again to generate the new output file. And now that I generated the new output file, since I have it open, I actually see it added text 4XL. And when I come over here, it is the 4XL size. Does that make sense? Yes. And that's a pain, right? So they've anticipated this, and instead, at the end of this command, if you say --watch, then it will watch your files. This command is now constantly running in the background. And now, I'm going to close the output. I really don't need to look at that output ever. I can just come over here, change this to 5, save, and then it updates. 6, save. You see? It also takes bold off of this, so I could say font-bold. Save that. Is in bold. Feeling that? This is really tight. Maybe I'd like my heading here to have some space around it. So I could say P-4, and that'll add a padding of 4, P-4, all around my header. Isn't that fun? If, however, I just wanted to have, maybe I just wanted to have horizontal padding of 4, then I can say PX4. So that's just 4 on the left and right. And maybe in the Y dimension, I want to have, I want to have 7. So now I've got 7 units of padding Y and only 4 on the left and right. You feeling this? Caleb, I'm going to pretend like I didn't hear that. No. One of the other cool things that you can do, and this is just scratching the surface, and I extended the deadline on that video to tonight at midnight. It's from Brad Travesty, one of my favorite YouTubers. Awesome guy. He's got a cool Boston accent. I think he's definitely 1.5xable if you need to compress that hour and a half into shorter. But he's going to take you through a whole site build with Tailwind, which I think is pretty cool to see him make a whole site. And you really can be much, much faster when you don't have to keep switching back and forth and remembering all of the CSS syntax. But it includes colors as well. So here I can say text, dash, and then they have all of these colors that are predefined. So it's text dash name, and there's hundreds of colors defined. And then for each color, like you see in the cyan color, actually, I don't like that cyan. I don't like red either. I can't see what I'm typing. Oh, I like indigo. Okay. There's like 10 different variants of the color, and they're numbers between basically 0, they're between 0 and 1,000. You're seeing this, right? Like I don't need to explain this in words. A smaller number is more white, and a darker number is darker. And right in the middle is usually like kind of like the color. So if I say text indigo 500 and then save, oh, okay, it took a second. Then with live, notice I've got live server on. Live server is watching my project to see when the CSS file changes, and then it changes this. Then I've changed the color. But if I'm like, that's a little light, I think I'd like to go up a shade. There we go. There's indigo 600. Maybe let's go all the way to 800. I don't know. Ugh. Likewise, we can say BG dash and get set the background color as well. Ah, it's terrible. Okay. So I do think Tailwind is really cool because it allows us to design our sites using a design system that somebody else made, using a bunch of utility CSS classes. Learning to use Tailwind is learning the names, or kind of the framework for the names. So you have to know, hey, do you want to change the color of text? Then start that with text dash, and then there's all the colors. You may want to look up what all the colors are so you know, right? So over here, colors. Here's all the colors that are built in. You seeing this? That have names. We can certainly define any colors that we want. Brad will do that as well. You can define a custom color and then get name access for it. One of the really cool things that Tailwind makes easy that I think is genuinely much more complicated is responsiveness. So when we have Tailwind, we can prefix any class name with the size device that we want that property to appear on. So I'm going to say MD for a medium-sized device. So this means for medium-sized devices and above, then I want the text color to be red 800. Okay, so for medium-sized devices and above, the text color is red 800. Otherwise, it's indigo 300. So let's check out our site. Let's see how big this window is for one. So this is back to our site. This should be really big. You notice that it's red because I'm on a big screen, and right, so apparently the cutoff for medium is right there. So when I do that, it becomes the other color. You don't usually change your colors based on size. You would change other things. But to me, this is way, way easier than writing media queries. Do you remember all the media queries? At media, min size, greater than, whereas this one, they've defined what small, medium, large, maybe there's an extra large, and you just need to learn, which is easy, for medium size, for large size devices and up, you use this. But the baseline, if you don't have an MD colon, that goes for everything. Okay, so where we're going is we're going to make a project using Tailwind. To get that under our belt, Tailwind's going to help us to work in React better. And React is also going to require us to know JavaScript. So we'll be, I think next time I'll have an assignment for you, sort of a baby website to learn some Tailwind, practice some Tailwind, and do a little bit of JavaScript. All right, y'all hang strong. Let me know if you have questions. Let's work through these setup stuff. Blessings, y'all.